was a quiet Sunday evening, and 18-year-old Olivia was home alone in her family's new house. They had moved in a few weeks ago, but the place still didn't feel like home. The sprawling modern house was cold and clinical, with long, empty hallways and tall windows that always seemed to reflect shadows in odd ways. Olivia was in the living room trying to study. Then she first noticed it, a faint, rhythmic tapping sound. It wasn't coming from the windows or the roof. No, it seemed to be coming from somewhere inside the house. She paused, her pen hovering over her notebook. "The heater?" she muttered to herself. But then the tapping stopped. She shrugged it off, brushing it aside as one of the many odd noises a new house makes. Half an hour later, it happened again. This time it was louder. It sounded like someone knocking, 3 slow taps on wood. Olivia frowned. Her parents were away for the weekend, and her younger sister was staying at a friend's house. She was completely alone, or at least she thought she was, determined to prove to herself that it was nothing. Olivia got up and began walking through the house. Her socks padded softly against the hardwood floor as she moved from room to room, checking every door and window. The sound came again, louder now, closer. Her stomach twisted. It was coming from the hallway upstairs. Olivia hesitated. She didn't want to go upstairs. Something about the shadows up there always felt wrong, but she forced herself to move. Her steps were slow and deliberate. When she reached the top of the stairs, she froze. The hallway was lined with 6 doors, 3 on each side, but now there was a 7th door. It was at the very end of the hall, where there had only been a blank wall before. Olivia's heart raced. She stared at the new door, trying to make sense of it. Its surface was old and splintered, completely different from the sleek, modern design of the house. "Where did that come from?" she whispered. Summoning her courage, Olivia approached the door. Her fingers hovered over the knob, but she didn't touch it. She could feel a faint cold draft seeping through the cracks. Then the tapping came again, from inside the door. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Her breath caught in her throat. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice trembling. Silence. She stepped back, her hands shaking. Her first instinct was to grab her phone, but when she turned to head back downstairs, she froze. All 6 doors along the hallway were now slightly open, each one creaking softly as if moved by a breeze. Olivia's chest tightened. She ran back to her room, locking the door behind her. She grabbed her phone and dialed her mom, but the call didn't go through. No signal. Instead, her phone buzzed with a notification. One new message. It was from an unknown number. The message read, "Don't open the 7th door." Olivia's blood ran cold. Her hands trembled as she stared at the screen. How did they know? She tried texting back, but before she could type, a loud bang echoed through the house. It was the 7th door. The sound was relentless now, pounding, like someone or something was trying to break through. Olivia pressed herself against the wall, her breathing shallow. And then, just as suddenly as it started, the noise stopped. For a long moment there was silence. And then she heard it. A voice. It was faint, almost a whisper coming from just outside her room. "Olivia, let me in." Her knees buckled. It wasn't just any voice. It sounded like her sister, but her sister wasn't home. Tears streamed down Olivia's face. The voice grew louder, more insistent. "Olivia, open the door. It's me, please." Her heart told her it wasn't real, but the voice was so familiar, so convincing. She reached for the doorknob but stopped herself. Instead, she whispered, "What's my middle name?" Silence. The voice faltered, then spoke again, this time lower, more distorted. "Let me in." Olivia backed away, clutching her phone. She quickly opened her camera and pointed it at the door. Through the screen, she could see the shadow of feet standing on the other side, except they weren't feet at all. They were claws. Suddenly, the pounding resumed, louder and more violent. The hinges of her door rattled, and Olivia knew it wouldn't hold for long. Desperate, she opened her window and climbed out onto the roof, the icy wind biting at her skin. She made her way down the trellis, landing in the snow-covered yard. But when she turned to look back at the house, she saw something that made her knees give way. In every window staring out at her were dozens of pale, eyeless faces. And standing in the doorway, holding it open, was a tall, shadowy figure. It raised a hand and waved. The seventh door slammed shut behind it.